will introduce you. In 2020, Jason Janas had a profound near-death experience after contracting COVID and developing tumors in his lungs that later ruptured. Before his NDE, Jason was a devout Christian. The NDE not only forever changed Jason, but also changed his religious perspective in a trillionth of a second. Jason, tell us about what you were like before this happened and what you experienced.
All right. Well, I'm what you would call a Gen Xer. So I was born in 1970 to, an abusive household. My mother was a hardcore alcoholic. When you're a child, you're expecting unconditional love, that you're just perfect and beautiful, and when you're beaten consistently, it just changes your perspective. So I became very self-sufficient by around 5. By 5 or 6, I could cook, I could clean, I let myself into the house, and I became a very withdrawn kid. I really didn't want to be around my friends anymore or become a part of, society in general. Started experimenting sexually at 6 or 7, and just went off and did my own thing without any care or regard of anybody or anything. I had just become numb, I guess. And, I tried to protect my sister as much as possible so she wouldn't get the beatings. And, I grew up, like you said, Christian Catholic, but I got that from my grandparents. Every time I had a vacation or summer vacations or whatever, I was shipped there. And I just had a profound experience with my grandparents. I loved them tremendously. And of course, she took me to church, went to Catholic school, and I firmly believed in the Bible, that it was literally God's breath, his written word that we were to follow. And so as I'm learning about this, I'm like, I'm doomed. I'm going to hell for everything that I've done. There's no getting around it now. And, so I don't know, I guess I gave up on life. I really just didn't care anymore about anything or anyone. So, she woke me up to go to church, and I sat up and I snapped at her. I took a swing at her, said, "Don't you ever wake me up. Don't you ever wake me up. God does not love me. He doesn't care. And I want no part of it." And that was the last relationship I had with God. I didn't speak to him. I didn't call his name. I didn't reach out to Jesus, didn't pray, just did not care. And, went through my first marriage really horribly. It was just Jason's way. I did what I wanted when I wanted, didn't care who I stepped on, who I hurt. And it was just, it was really rough life, and my first wife passed away, rolled into my second marriage with the same kind of attitude of not caring and just doing what I wanted. I really wasn't a pleasant guy, basically. I got into late high school, I started doing drugs, and then into my early 20s, I began to experiment with different drugs, hash, coke, ecstasy was big for me. Ecstasy was a phenomenal drug, and, when you're doing drugs, you don't realize or what you're trying to do when you're trying to find that peace. You're trying to find that sense of joy that's, that all of us as divine beings are created out of. And, so I'm continuously trying to do these drugs and just to find some sense of happiness and a place where I can feel at home for just, 10, 15 minutes, So went to college, partied, did all the drugs, did all of that stuff, and just was uncaring, even for my first child. It was just an utter lack of caring, of love, of any kind of empathy for anything or anyone. And then during my second marriage, struggling again, chasing after all the wrong things, chasing after money. Why can't I have a good house? Why can't, I have this? Why, all the materialistic things, and I just kept sinking deeper and deeper, climbing down the ladder, and still a very unpleasant guy to be around. I mean, when I look back at who I was, I would be like, I wouldn't have anything to do with you. I'd be talking to you for 5 minutes and I'd be gone. So I ended up getting a divorce, just being on my own. And then April 2nd hit, and it was the beginning of the pandemic. And a couple of weeks prior to that, I kept waking up with blood in my mouth, like, well, am I biting my tongue or something? Work had a big talk, if you're feeling sick, this, that, and the other thing, don't come in or whatever. So I come home from work on April 2nd, really tired, just really, really tired. And sat down, I had made dinner, sat down here on the couch and took a bite of my sandwich. And then I had something wasn't right. I kind of threw up in my mouth. I know it's gross, but it's like, God, that tastes terrible, Tried to take another bite, and bright red blood just flowed all over the plate, all over my food. And I'm like, and then it came up again, and it kept coming up. I kept coughing up just bright red blood, Now I'm starting to panic. I can't breathe, I'm starting to wheeze, and I'm like, so I FaceTime my ex-wife real quick, and I'm like, she wouldn't answer. And finally she answers, like, what do you want? And I'm trying to talk, and blood just flew out all over the phone. And that's the last thing I remember. Woke up in the ICU, hands and feet strapped to the bed, tube down the throat, intubated, IV in the neck, stuff in the nose, myriad of doctors and everything around me. Jason, do you know where you are? And I'm like, from the moment I opened my eyes, I turned my head off to the left, which is up in the corner. And I found out later that, the ICU was full. So they had me in the infectious disease ward. But up where that TV was an undeniable presence, of a presence that I had felt my whole existence. I couldn't place it, but it was undeniable. And I couldn't stop looking at the TV, And finally, one of the days, one of the nurses, Jason, do you want me to turn on the TV? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, but how do you tell somebody there's somebody standing there? There's somebody right there. And I was like, I just kept my eyes glued to the TV, and it never faltered. It never wavered, And at some point in time, I got off the ventilator, and tube was taken out. It was a beautiful, late April day. And, I had no strength. I lost 65 pounds. I couldn't talk. And I mustered up onto my elbows as much as I could. This is the first time I cried out to God or talked to God over 40 years, and I just begged him not to die. I said, please, don't let me die, please. And the moment that you're going to die, you will regret your life. You will regret not doing everything that you wanted to do. And that was what was filling me up. And I'm sobbing uncontrollably, and I begged him not to die. I said, please, I love you. I never stopped believing in you, but I'm sorry that I abandoned you and Jesus, and I'm just shaking uncontrollably, sobbing. And I said, please let me see my daughters again. Please don't take them from me. And there was somebody special in my life at that point in time. And I said, please don't take her from me, please. I want to hold her hand. I want to kiss her again, tell her I love her. And it was in that moment that time stopped, everything stopped. I was out of my body. I was no longer on the bed. I saw my body on the bed, and I was up at the ceiling, and all pain stopped. I mean, the amount of pain that I was in was mind-altering pain. It was, yeah, that's the only way to describe the amount of pain that I was in. And it was instantly stopped. And in that moment, I could see everything behind me, everything around the room, all the nurses, all the patients in the beds. I could see every blade of grass, and I was up probably on the third or fourth floor, and I could see every blade of grass outside, every blade of grass moving independently. I could see all the serrations, the veins. I could see their soul. I could see the tree souls and the colors, and you've heard people talk about this, that the only way to describe it is the colors were alive. I mean, they were moving. That's the only way I can describe it. Just beautiful. And I was feeling all the love from the grass, the trees. And while I'm ensconced in this absolute love and light, and there's no words in our archaic language that can accurately describe the love that takes place in that moment. It is unconditional, doesn't come close. It was like I was placed in a river about 10 feet down. Instead of the water moving around you, this warm love flowed through me in every part of my being. And I instantly knew where I was. I said, I'm home. It was more of a shock, because I knew I shouldn't have been there. I was like, I'm home. And, I know that the light that I'm receiving is I call Father, because in the moment of my transition, I felt like I was his one and only son. The love that came through me and into me was just unbelievable, and I was like, I was looking down, I said, what a beautiful day to die. Like, it is something that was, that I've done 1,000 times. I've been here before. It's like putting on an old pair of shoes after you bought a new pair, it's like, oh, they still feel good, and it was that kind of feeling. And it was like, I was home, and I was like, in my head, I shouldn't be here. It wasn't, and there were no words spoken other than me. And it was through my head, through my thoughts. And, this love, it just never stopped. And then another presence showed up. And that was, so I was looking at, I mean, I could see everything. So it's really hard to describe. But then, in front of me, Jesus showed up. Again, no words were spoken. I just instantly knew who it was. I could feel his energy. I could feel his love, and even more love was bestowed upon me. And I began to feel horrifically guilty of being there. I shouldn't have been there. There's no way I should have been there. I wasn't a good person at all, at any point in my life. And the love that was bestowed upon me was something that I shouldn't have. And the guiltier I felt, the more love that was given to me, and I knew in that moment that I had done nothing wrong. I was right where I was needed to be at that point, and that all the lies and the misteachings of, I'm just going to say it, the church, that led me down a path of utter, anger and hatred and abuse, drugs, because I felt, if I was going to burn in hell, then I might as well just really make it a one last show, and none of it was true, and after, I don't know how long I was in that moment or above my body by the ceiling, but then Jesus walked to me and he put two hands on my chest, which was, he's pushing me back into my soul, back into my body, and like I said, I was in an incredible amount of pain. And it was in that moment of transition when that love hit and that light, it was all gone. I was young again. I was juiced. And when I mean juiced, I mean, I was like plugged into the universe's battery pack, man. I was like, oh, I'm home, and I'm like, okay. There was none of this wondering where I'm at, what's going on. It was just an instant knowing, and again, nothing was ever spoken. I just knew who was with me. So I'm being pushed back into my body. And I was instantly put to sleep. I mean, I have never felt asleep like that. I was gone. Again, I woke up how many hours later, minutes, I don't know, but I had nurses frantically trying to wake Jason, are you Jason? We've been trying to wake you up, and I'm like, I turned to the left and that presence was gone. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, how do I tell them? How do I tell anybody what just happened to me? Nobody's going to believe me. They're going to think I'm nuts. I can't tell anybody this. So I get discharged from the hospital and I go home, and I live by myself, and I'm like, I'm learning how to walk. I'm learning how to talk. I'm learning how to eat again because, being on a ventilator for a month, it took that all from me. I mean, I was basically a 49-year-old baby. So, and I fell into a deep depression. I was like, it felt like hell. It's like, how can you put me in this beautiful position and now stick me back into this? I mean, I was like, that's a sick joke. This isn't cool, and I really struggled with it. And finally, about 3 months afterwards, I called up my pastor and said, I need to talk to you. And he said, yeah, I'd love to talk to you, come in, tell me your story. And so I go there, and he sits across from me or next to me, and I'm talking and I'm telling him, my story. And he puts his finger on his lip and pushes his lip down, and he's just wide-eyed and his mouth fell open, like wide open. And I'm sobbing uncontrollably and telling him all of this stuff. And he said, I'd like you to speak to the congregation and to the students and stuff. And he basically blacklisted me. He kicked me out of the church. I wasn't welcome anymore. And I'm like, I'm.
Could you explain how he went from he was going to let you speak to the church and then he didn't? What did he say?
He basically just said that to get me out of there. He just kind of told me what I wanted to hear, or to pacify me. And then as soon as I was out the door, it was, I don't want you here anymore. It was abundantly clear, and I was like, what, who do I talk to about, you wouldn't even talk. He never said anything, nothing. He just sat there in shock. And I'm like, and it dawned on me when I got home a few days later that there's the confirmation I needed. Everything that took place in my, that I was taught my whole life through the Bible, through being a Catholic and Christian, that you're an unworthy sinner and that you're going to burn, and all of this was made abundantly clear that none of it was real, none of it was true. So when I went to my pastor and talked to him, he was like, I was like, yeah, okay. I'm done with you. I'm done. I'm out. I want no part of it. I don't need it. Neither does God. Does not care about your religion in any way, shape, or form.
And so that's how your whole concept of religion changed in that moment. It was their reaction. It's a fear-based reaction, right?
It kept me living in fear, from the time I was a little kid, experimenting and doing the things that I did, that, I grew up in anger. I grew up in hate. I grew up in fear. And all of that is negative energy. So the more negative energy you put out into the universe, into the non-physical, it's going to come back to you that way, but with more of it, So my whole life, I've just lived in negative energy and anger and hate and fear,
That's not what
and
you get on the other side. So it's so beautiful.
it was such, I wasn't expecting that, and I struggled for 2 years, even after I had my NDE. About 4 months later, I'm pacing in my apartment here. And I said, I was kind of getting frustrated. I said, look, and I'm talking to God, and I said, look, you picked the wrong guy. I don't know. You needed to pick the Pope or a bishop or somebody worthy of, so being where I was, and like that. I said, no. And that was the first time I heard God speak to me. It was as clear as day. I was walking in my bedroom And when I said that, I said, you picked the wrong guy. You needed a pope or somebody. And he simply said, why not? You are my son. And I was like, I felt that love of home. And I dropped to my knees. And to this day, I still don't know how I spoke these words, where they came from. But when I got to my knees and just lifted my arms up, I said, all that I am you. Meaning, I am God. You know, for all that I am, the love, the light, and the energy, I am you. You know, and where that came from, I don't know, but it was never, you know, it was so true. And that's was the beginning of my healing, to know that I was a divine being, I was powerful, and that all of my thoughts, whether unspoken or spoken, whether they were positive or negative, affected my life. The world that I see in front of me today is a direct result of my thoughts. That's the power we have. So everybody is seeing their world in a different place where they are, but that's because of those thoughts, you know. And I realized the immense power that we all have as divine beings. You know, we are incredibly powerful. And it took me a while to get that under control, because I was still having spiritual experiences. 2 years. So in 2022, I had a profound out of body experience. I woke up very emotional, crying. You know, I've become a very emotional guy. And I was like, why did you keep me in the hospital room? Why did you keep me why couldn't I come home? You know, everybody else gets to go home. Well, I mean, even though I was technically home, you know, but I was being the 2-year-old, you know, and it's like, why couldn't I go through the tunnel? Why couldn't I come home? So I walked from my bedroom, came here, laid on the couch, and as soon as my head hit the pillow, and this is like 7 o'clock in the morning, I was pulled out of my body, like at the speed of light. And I entered the void. I entered this pitch dark tunnel. And I mean, I was moving. And I don't know how far away, but it was just like the pinhead of light. It was just like a little white dot in this immense void of utter blackness, just nothingness. And I'm traveling in this tunnel, and then white, not white, but more grayish white started permeating through the tunnel. And I'm traveling, and then I started to feel the unconditional love again. And I'm like, he heard me. I'm going home. You know, I was so excited. And I'm like, the white, you know, the light is getting bigger. Now it's a little sliver, and, you know, and time again stopped. It could have been 5 minutes, could have been 5 seconds, or 5 hours. I don't know. And I'm traveling, and now everything in front of me is the most magnificent light. And again, the love is pouring through my body. And I'm getting closer and closer. Now all I see is just the light, you know. And then I got right up to it, I'd say about a nose hair away. And I was like, and then I was thrown back into my body, and I was back in my apartment. And I'm like, you know, had I crossed into that light, my body here would have died instantly. It would have just died. I would have, you know, and it's not my time. And, you know, but the point is in some of the earlier videos that I've talked about, is like, you know, you're never alone. You know, no matter what you are going through, no matter what you've created in your mind, and whatever that situation is, you are never alone. You are seen, you are heard, and you are felt, and you are loved more than you could ever possibly imagine. And that gave me such strength, you know, in such a time of darkness, when, you know, I had this experience. And, you know, it's almost like an abandonment when you have this NDE, and then you get thrown back into this physical body. It's like, no, you know, even though I begged not to die, I was like, no, I don't want to go. No, I didn't care about my children anymore. I didn't care about it. Everything and every person and everything that was going on back then was right where they needed to be. Everything was perfect and beautiful. Even though millions of people were dying from COVID and everything that was taking place, everything was perfect and beautiful, you know. And I was like, I want to stay home. I don't want to come back, you know. So I felt it was very difficult for me. It was the contrast of being so negative and mean and broken to this being filled with this unconditional love and a sense of humility that I have never had and experienced in my life. I've never experienced love like that from anybody in my life, and then to be loved like that. And then, God stripped me of all my hate and anger and rage. And I'm filled with a love that I don't know what to do with. And I was like, what do you want me to do? I don't know what to do. Everything that was my world died. I didn't want to go into my job anymore. All I wanted to do was help people in whatever way I could, and it's, I call it your guidance system. Everybody has it. Okay. And if you listen to it, it will direct you to where you need to go in your life, and you'll find your purpose and why you're here. And finally, in 2022, beginning of this year, I found that purpose. And that was, I cannot let people know that they're not loved, that they're not alone, that they have a purpose, that they're needed here, and that I just couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore and watch people suffer from, the misteachings and misguidings of, I'm going to say it, the church, because so many people are living in fear and guilt and shame from things that they've done that are perfectly natural and normal. And it's why we came here to experience these things. And so I began to meditate, and I was like, my mind won't shut up. I mean, how do I get this physical mind, not my spirit? Because we have two minds. You guys know that, right? We have our spiritual mind and we have the physical mind, which, for millennia, we've handed the reins over to the ego, and we just let the ego go, right? And the ego is not your friend at all. He judges, condemns, and attacks. And, and if you look at the world today, what's going on? Judgment, attacking, and condemnation from everywhere, and so I've learned to really put my foot on his face and keep him down. And I've stopped all judgment, all judgment. I will not judge any situation, no matter how horrific it may be. I just will not. So I've taken the controls back, and I've learned to access my power, access the energy. I'm not that great at it because, up here just doesn't want to shut up. So it's real, but when I can really focus, I can feel the warmth and the love vibrating through me like woof, woof. Yeah, I can just feel it moving. And at, one point in time, I actually controlled it. I mean, it went from the crown of my head down to the middle, down to my back, and it healed my back basically, and I said, make it go away. And again, it just went down my spine, and I was like, wow, this is who we are. We've come here to find that. And I know that that's really difficult for a lot of people to understand, but we came here to go through these things, this life that we created, to find our divinity, to find our power, to find out who we are. And that's what Jesus, when he was here, taught. He didn't come here to start a religion. He didn't come here. He came here to teach equality and love. Women are no different than men in any way, shape, or form. And he taught that. And he was teaching women that, and he was teaching everybody how to access their power. And he said, look, you're no different than me. None of you are. You've just forgotten who you are, So I've learned to tap into that now, and I'm not that great with it, but there are times when I'm sitting here meditating that I am just alive. Like I am plugged into like a plasma ball. You ever see a plasma ball with that, you put your hand on it, you can feel, and that's what I feel like inside. And it's like, it takes practice, it takes you to free your mind, unlearn what you have learned from millennia of wrong teachings and misguidings, to open your mind to who you truly are, which is a divine being of immense power and love, and to access that power and to love unconditionally. And in the same aspect, the start of my healing was that very same day when, God said, why not? You are my son. Is he made me look at myself, and I had to forgive myself for allowing myself to live in fear and anger and hate for 49 years. And when I truly forgave myself for thinking I was unworthy of love, to be loved, and it was like the weight of the world had lifted off of me. I mean, I felt wonderful. I felt that love of home again, and not only that was, I had to forgive all of those who had hurt me, because we're all role playing here for one another. So the experiences that you want to go through, somebody's got to put their hand up and say, okay, I'll do that for you. You don't realize that. You just look at the event and you live in the pain. You don't look at that experience and learn from it. We get caught up in it and we hold on to it like it's this. And it becomes so ingrained within us that, we keep holding on to that negative energy, and it keeps us, in that lower vibrational state. So when you can truly forgive, it is an amazing process of healing. And then, you can truly go out and then love everybody that I see here. And when I go out in the world, how much I love you all, and that's really what it taught me was, who I am, who I thought Jason Janas was merely an illusion, clearly a fictional character that, I'm dreaming of right now, that, I don't really exist as Jason Janas. It's just the vehicle that I'm driving is named Jason. So, when I can realize the truth of how beautiful the love story we're in, when you can wake up and see it, it's truly a beautiful thing,
I love
truly
it
beautiful.
that you're addressing some really key concepts of near-death experiences, and yours has been pretty recently, so you're integrating quickly. But we do have, if we continue to have spiritually transformative experiences after an NDE, because that veil has opened up and it's just easier to connect. I always encourage near-death experiencers to go to meditation groups, to try out different spiritual techniques and be in places of openness, because we can learn quickly. We can learn how to be mediums quickly. We can learn these things because we're opened. And yet, it sounds like you have a wound that I have too. One of the hardest wounds is going back into churches for funerals. With my family's very religious, and I have sat through some of the saddest funerals that made me want to stand up and scream because I disagree so intensely with the minister. At one funeral, they're doing real damage to people, whereas mediums are helping people heal. This one minister said I had to tell this mother and father whose son died of an overdose that he's burning in hell. And I almost came out of my skin. I was like, no, he didn't, he's right here. I've got him. He said, it's fine. Where are the parents? I need to talk to them. There are these things, they see death, many people who are religious, as a very dark, ominous, unknown thing, and only Jesus can transport you there, or only, and that's not how death is.
It's
so
such
full of
a
hope.
beautiful transition. It is one that for me, it was very it just happened. It was in one moment and then one moment there was no pain, no popping, no anything. And it was just love, and people say, well, Jason, hell exists. People tell you, I said, no. I said, you don't understand what the void is. Okay. The void is pure consciousness. Here in the physical realm, when you want to manifest something, it's going to take a little time to get here. Okay. In the void, if you end up in the void and not having a beautiful experience right away, your vibration is too low. Okay. You're in the bottom rungs of heaven, but it's just the void. But in that void, when you manifest something, it instantly happens. It pops up in front of you. It's pure consciousness. Okay. So when you think of something, and most people, when they're, wandering around in the dark, they're not thinking of puppy dogs and kitten cats, and rainbows and ice cream. They're scared. So what do you do when you're scared? You think of the most evil things possible, right? So then all of a sudden, what's created? hell, demons. Well, I was being torn apart. Well, that's what you were creating, and then what always happens? It doesn't matter who you are, whatever. God, our Father, boom, you've raised your energy. Whoop, up comes the light, up comes the love, and I went to hell and came back, and it's just like, no, but you created hell while you were there, and you manifested, everything that is the opposite of love. Why? Fear. Fear will keep you in that lower vibration. It will keep you, it will keep those bad things, continuing to happen to you. And the church feeds on that. And the church will propagate that in, what it's telling you in the sermons, and it's like you said, I cannot go into a church and have them spew that, because I would freak out on them. I'm like, do you understand? Clearly you understand, but do you know what you're doing to these people right now? And it sickens me. And I get very upset by it. And I've become an advocate for helping those, and I've had so many people come to me. My son is gay. Okay, please tell me he's not going to burn in hell. Please tell me. It's like, no, it's like, why? It's like, well, I had, during my youth, I had bisexual experiences. It clearly says in the Bible, it's an abomination. You're going to burn in hell. Well, I instantly went home. I did nothing wrong. Your son is fine. Does he love the person he's with? Yes. Then that is what we are created out of. It does not matter. So, wow, really? I was like, absolutely. We are love. And if you love that person, it does not matter whether it's same sex or not, or heterosexual. It's love. And that's what we were created for. So no, your son is just fine, and, they're crying and sobbing because they're, they won't let go of the religion, but they're worried about their son. It's like, well, I'm a Mormon, and my son can't be gay. If he is, so love him, accept him, and accept his role in what he wants to experience here. You cannot deny that from anybody. They are going to experience what they need to, because that's what they came here to do. So, and like I said, some of the things that we came here to experience are difficult, dark. Why? There's an experience and a learning experience in that situation that you need to learn from. Your environment that you're in right now, that you see every day, you're in it for a reason. There's something you need to learn from it. Okay. So that's your journey. Find out what that is, and then say, if you're in poverty or in sickness, we create our own sickness through judgment, condemnation, through all of that, through that lower vibration. You bring all of that energy back into you, thus creating your cancer, your leukemia, your whatever you have, so you raise your vibration. You say, I'm not doing this anymore. Nah, I choose love. I choose forgiveness. Your body will respond to that. It will begin to heal itself.
There seemed to be, did you experience, like, there was no shame, like when I saw the things I had done to myself, and I had even attempted to take my life before my near-death experience. The way God showed me this was like, oh, don't harm yourself, love yourself the way it wasn't like, oh, how dare you do this, or, oh, that was wrong to take those drugs, or, sleep with that. None of that. It was just like, just love yourself, please.
It was pure love. And there was absolutely in no way, the only judgment that happened was of me judging myself unworthy, because I knew that, the things that I did. And like you, I took a bottle of pills, I had enough. And, I said, I can't. And, the Bible said, well, if you kill yourself, you're going to burn in hell. And this was like 5 years before my NDE. So I threw everything up, but, I still attempted to escape the hell that I was creating, because I was creating. God wasn't creating anything. He gave me the power to create my dream and my world, right? Well, that was my world. And if I was unhappy with it, I needed to change the way I was thinking, not anything else. And that's, one of the best things that, I've been taught is like your environment that you're living in and everything that's happening to you is a creation of your own mind, your own thoughts, spoken or unspoken. It does not matter. If you're thinking and running with the ego, even if you're just sitting there watching or reading a book, that's going to come back at you. And that's something that I want people to know is like, change your mind, free your mind, everybody, free it, and the rest will follow, positive thoughts, positive energy, positive everything. You're never alone, no matter where you are, what you're doing, you are not alone. And how do I know this? I've had 2 meetings in person here with Archangel Michael. One was at my place of employment. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, 500,000 square foot building, nobody in it but me. And I had come through, open set of locked doors. Every other door was locked behind me. And I turn around and this person is standing in front of me. No noise, no nothing. And I'm like, I jumped and I'm like, whoa, where did you come from? I didn't hear any footsteps, no, nothing. And he's just smiling, just this most beautiful smile. And I was at ease. And he said, oh, I'm just here. I'm dirty. I was going to go into the bathroom. And so I thought we end up talking in the bathroom for like 30 minutes, but it was all about my NDE and love, and he was just smiling throughout the whole thing. And he reached out and shook my hand. He goes, you're Jason, right? And I'm like, whoa, I didn't tell you my name. And I'm like, and he's just smiling, he's just smiling. And he shook my hand. And the strength that was in his handshake was, I've never felt strength like that. I felt strength, but he could have crushed every bone in my hand, like with no problem at all. And he had this beautiful square jaw, beautiful beard, brown hair, just magnificent. And I'm, a beautiful being, and he says, Jason, thank you. And he's walking out the door and he turned around and he said, Jason, I'll see you again soon. And I'm like, how does he know my name? I've never met this guy, but I grab my stuff, I go out to meet him. Whoop, nobody there, no sound, no smell, no. I'm looking down hallways, locked doors. Where did this? I'm like, okay, this is okay. What's going on? 3 months later, coming out of sushi, there's this bum like sitting by the end of my Jeep, and I'm like, who's this guy? And so he, all of a sudden, he's got that smile on his face again. And he goes, hi, have this beautiful conversation. And he's talking to me about very intimate things about my life. And I'm like, how does this guy know this? And the person I was with, that it freaked her out to the point of like, she ran and hid in the car, locked the doors. And I'm like, so I'm sitting here talking. So I turn around to look to see if they're all right. And I turn around, he's standing in front of me. And I'm like, and he gives me a fist bump and he goes, it's all about the love, right? And I'm like, I'm trying to place what's happening here. And I'm like, he goes, it's really about the love, right? He gives me a fist bump again. I go, yes, it is about the love. And I said, I had a near-death experience in 2020. And he goes, I know you did. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Okay. And then he goes again, he goes, you're Jason, right? And I'm like, okay, again, I didn't tell him my name, walk with me. So I walked with him. We had this beautiful conversation about me picking up and moving somewhere, to Sacramento. And I'm like, he said, do you have a problem with that? I go, no. But I'm like, out of all the places you want to send me to California? Really, and I'm like, sure, and then I get him to where he needs to go. I turn around and he's gone. I'm like, okay, it was and at the time I can't place it, you're trying to think of like, he had the same square jaw, except this time his hair was same haircut, same beard, except it was red, like a darker red. And as I was driving home, I was like way tired all of a sudden. I'm like, oh my God, that was Michael again, and I'm like, what is going on? And I was like trying to figure out why I'm needed in California. But clearly, at some point, I'm going to end up moving out there. But it was still, I'm still in awe of, the fact that Michael has come to see me, and not that he's not seeing anybody else, but, you just feel really important in that moment, that like, that you are above all else, so beautiful and loved. And it was, an amazing moment, two of them. And then my last spiritual encounter I had this August. I was feeling very sick again. In June and July, very tired, very lethargic. It was getting very hard for me to get out of bed. And I was at work. I was actually literally shaking. Boss calls me up, said, "Hey, go to the doctor." I go to the doctor, come home, give them the doctor's excuse. They fire me. No excuse, no nothing, just don't come home. So I'm laying here on the couch, just in pain, and I'm like trying to meditate and just try to make the pain go away. And all of a sudden I get this shot of, the only way to describe it was unconditional peace. Like I got shot with heroin or something. It was just a very relaxing moment, and I was at peace. And then two hands reached into my stomach about wrist deep, and they were just, I could feel fingers and stuff moving around. And I'm just like, okay, this feels really good. I mean, I can stay here in this moment for a while. I probably took like a minute or something. But after that, I felt the hands come out. Pain was instantly gone. And in that month, it was the beginning of August. By the end of August, I had lost 57 pounds. My eating habits changed. Like I went from eating terribly to now eating salmon, salads, pistachios, just extremely healthy, drinking lots of water, and Shaun can attest to this. When I first met him, I was a lot heavier, and, the weight was just instantly gone. And, I was like, what is going on? And it's everybody, has talked about this, our transition from 3D into 5D, which is, for everybody that doesn't know, excuse me, it's a shift in your consciousness. You're raising your consciousness from the 3D physical plane into 5D consciousness. And anybody that is going through, as you've heard it, like the dark night of the soul or a very spiritually transformative experience, you're going to be alone. You need to be alone. You need that time to focus with the non-physical, and become, one with them. And that was what was taking place during that time, is my transitioning into the 5D. And it was truly a beautiful experience. And it's not over. I'm constantly feeling that love from the non-physical. But one thing I do want to mention that's very important is when people pray, the non-physical is a much higher vibration, everybody. It's very high. And Jesus is there, ascended masters are there. The non-physical will not come down to you. Okay. It will not lower itself into the lower vibration. It will not. So in order for you, because the non-physical is desperately trying to get a hold of you, it's the non-physical is the genie in the bottle. What you wish for will come true, but you've got to raise your vibration and energy to receive that. So the non-physical is waiting for a crack in your armor, basically, for that positivity to open up so they can jump in and give you these things. So, when you're praying, raise your vibration. When you're talking to the non-physical, if you've had a difficult situation arise, raise it. And they will give you everything that you ask for. And that's what I've been learning, and it has been happening. I've been manifesting a new life. I started my own business, my own YouTube, which is taking off, because I said, when I looked at my physical world, the world that I created out of hate, fear, and anger, I looked at it and said, that I don't want any of this anymore. I'm not happy. Nah. And this is what I want. And it's slowly beginning to manifest and change. So, don't give up on what you're trying to do. Here in the physical world, it takes time, to happen. So when you're wanting something or praying for something, don't give up on it. Every day, 100 million times a day, talk about it, raise your energy, ask for it, and you'll get it. And that's really what I learned out of it. So when I was lost in religion, and when I left it, I was free. I know who I am. I love myself like there's nothing, I am a beautiful being of love and light. And I project that out onto everybody that I talk to. Because I couldn't imagine going back to who I was. I couldn't, there's no way I could do that. So yeah, that's really what I learned out of that. It was a beautiful experience that it took me, well, it's going to be 4 years. It took me a good 3 years to really get a hold of that, because it's like, you feel abandoned, but you've got to do the work. Yeah, I had that experience, but I had to do the work to get into where I'm at now, with the feeling of my energy and being able to control that energy. And when somebody's hating me or saying, you know what, you're nothing more than a liar, I'm instantly in love. I forgive you. You're just lost in your delusional dream. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. God bless. Good luck on your journey. And I just don't want any of that negative energy in my life anymore. I do not want it. So, I mean, they can disrespect and they can do whatever, and I will love them. I will say, I forgive you. And, I don't have to sit in it. I refuse to sit in it. I cannot take it. It's a sick feeling for me. I don't know if any of you have experienced that end of years, but, to jump or to climb down that ladder is just, I can't do it. So anybody that is negative in my life, I will love them, but I will also, excuse myself from that situation and say, hey, best of luck. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to climb down. I'm going to continue to climb up. And, that's part of our purpose, is to climb up out of that darkness into the light. Because what is light? It crushes the darkness, doesn't it? You can be in this fear and hate and all of that, but all of a sudden you find love, and love has no limits, right? You can't be any worse, less. There's no limit on love. So when you love unconditionally, you have raised your vibration, and you will not want to walk back down that ladder. It feels very uncomfortable. So, it was a profound life-changing moment where it led me down a path of teaching, where, I grew up one way in the working tradition, and that has now gone out the door, where, I have now, changed what I want. I found my purpose on earth, why I came here. It was abundantly clear once I figured and put the dots together where, my guidance system had sent me. So it was a beautiful thing.
Jason, we have a question in the chat. Maybe you want to answer. Well, let's go with how do you raise the frequency?
Okay, how you raise your frequency is through love. You have to take control of the ego. Okay. You cannot let the ego run wild anymore in your life. He is judgment, he is hate, he is, attack. And we are created out of love and light, the exact same thing Father is. So in order to raise your vibration, you have to control your ego. You have to put your foot on its face and keep them down. And then no matter what happens, it starts with you first. You have to forgive yourself of everything that you think you've done wrong, because you've done nothing wrong. And then, when I ask people, do you love yourself? Everything falls quiet. Do you love yourself? If not, then that's where you need to start, is you need to see how beautiful you are and how pure you are. And it starts there, by raising your vibration through love, of loving yourself. Like 50 years, I never loved myself, and in that moment of where, I said, all that I am you, I instantly fell in love with myself, and my vibration continued to rise. So it starts with you, and it starts with your thoughts. Get out of your own head, get rid of the ego, quit listening to the thoughts that are running through your head, because even though they're running through your head and you haven't spoken them, they're negative. They're still being sent out into the non-physical, and they will attract all the other negative energy, and it will come back to you. So that's how you start.
Right. So there's a question about hell. Let's see what you this they're assuming that hell is real. So I'm just going to read what they said. So if so, then hell is indeed real. Maybe it's not that God is not forgiving anyone, but some people can't accept that forgiveness because their guilt is too great. What would you say about that?
I would say, and I'm going to flat out say it, like I told you earlier, is that there is no hell. Sin doesn't exist. Hell does not exist. For all of those that had a dark experience during their transition, is because you cannot take anything from this illusion, this game that we're in, the matrix. Okay, anything physical, like, oh, my doctorate degree, I have $100,000 in the bank, my BMW, it won't go. Once you transition and you're still stuck on that, you are going to create hell, right? You're stuck in the physical 3D world where you no longer exist and really have never existed, because you're basically a hologram in an illusion. So you can't take anything from the physical world into the non-physical world. Okay, you cannot. And what you experience then is hell. Why am I dead? I can't have this. This can't be happening to me. You're of a much lower vibration. So everything, as I said, in the void is pure consciousness. So now you are going to instantly manifest all of those fears directly in front of you right now. It's not going to take a year or 6 months or whatever. It's going to instantly manifest, and you are creating hell. Okay. It's in your mind. That's all it is. And once you free yourself of that, you let go of the physical world, the physical realm, and everything in it, you have raised your vibration, and then the light appears, and you are welcomed, with Father, Jesus, and everybody else, but not until then. So it's really, hell is a state of mind. That's all it is. You can create hell here on earth if you want, here in the physical, by woe is me. Why is this always happening to me? Why am I poor? Why did I lose my job? You're creating hell, all of that negative energy. Well, the same thing applies when you transition over, when you die into the non-physical. You create hell. It simply is a state of mind. It does not exist.
Beautiful. Well, Jason, that was absolutely wonderful. And if everybody else, so if you guys want to put in the chat, in the question Q&A, if you want to ask some questions, we can have Susan and David and Steve come and everyone can answer the questions if you want to do that. Just gotta turn on your chat or your camera and unmute.
I just wanted to say thanks as well, Jason. It's very freeing to let people walk away from the church but still be connected to love and their own spiritual journey. And it takes a while for some of us to admit that. I mean, like my experience was in 94, but I've only recently been able to just say to people who said like Happy Easter, I'll just go, oh, I'm spiritual, not religious.
It's a freeing thing, because you don't need religion. It's a hindrance. It keeps people living in fear. And, to me, that is now in the position that I'm in, it's sickening. I can't watch somebody sit there and suffer from their own mind. Having somebody say, well, you're going to burn in hell for all of this. It is ludicrous. I can't sit on the sidelines anymore. And I will talk to anybody. I will help anybody, that comes to me. And like I said, when, I left religion, I became free. I was lost in religion. I was deemed unworthy, a sinner, you're going to burn in hell. I fully embraced my experience. I have grown in spirituality, and that's exactly what I say. I'm spiritual. I love my I love Father. I am him. I am the universe. I am the sun, the stars, the dark matter, the black holes. When, you hear people say I was one with everything, that's what they're talking about.